Heavy rainfall and flooding are a concern in the next several days, as well as severe weather today and a little bit into tomorrow. Thankfully, the real significant severe weather, at least as of right now, is behind us, right? But the impacts are there, of course, and people are affected by that. So we ought to be praying for them. But as of right now, we have some beneficial and heavy rain moving through middle and North Georgia this morning, and looks like an MCS type feature. On the backside of this, we have some maybe sub-severe storms moving in here into parts of Alabama, maybe some hail and high winds and company these. We don't have any real warnings or anything going on with this stuff right now, so that's good. Maybe some special weather statements here. To the north, of course, it's a lot cooler, but it's still wet. And as far as current hazards, not a lot to talk about here. You know, we got anyway, the current hazards, not a lot going on. Some winter storm watch out here in parts of Colorado, the higher terrain, just just to the south of Denver, actually. Some snow, maybe. Winter storm watch expires in 2 days, so we could have some snow here right on the foothills Rockies here, and some freeze warnings with colder temperatures back to the west here. We got some flood warnings up here with snow melt and flood advisories up here in the Grand Marius area. Don't know how to really pronounce that. With some maybe heavy rainfall right in the northern New England to Maine this morning. All right, so here's today's updated severe threat. Excuse me. Um, well, you know, we have this marginal risk all the way down from parts of now central Georgia, south central Georgia, and the south central Alabama, Mississippi, all to the along the Gulf Coast here, Louisiana, Dallas, Texas, all back towards south central Texas as well, and another marginal risk up here in Virginia, North Carolina, parts of Pennsylvania, Delaware as well, and we have a general thunderstorm risk everywhere else, right? So yesterday the threat wasn't as far to the east here, right? But in Georgia, especially, it's at least right now the potential for tornadoes was pretty low. All right, so we'll look at that. See the tornado risk. Yesterday we only had one in the mid-Atlantic, but now we have one back to the west here. Likely the best instability and low-level kinematics, meaning wind profiles, lends itself to that. Surface-based convection can get going here. 2% tornado risk. Louisiana, parts of Texas here. These people can't catch a break, I'll tell you, in the mid-Atlantic. So now going on to wind risk, hail risk, sorry, wind risk here. Getting ahead of myself. You have the 5% wind risk. What does that mean? 5% chance of winds exceeding roughly 60 miles per hour within 25 miles of a given location. Pretty low risk for high winds, but one thing that is going to really modulate this threat is how fast this convection clears out that's moving through right now. My feeling is if this does clear out for the southern portion of this area and we get enough daytime heating, the potential is there for some severe storms as we get towards the afternoon hours, evening hours, maybe even overnight hours. So we'll have to see how this convection downstream evolves, whether it fills in or what happens here. So we'll just have to see what happens today. Same thing with the mid-Atlantic. That modulates the threat here as well. Morning convection moving through the area. As far as hail goes, we do have a small risk of hail exceeding 2 inches in diameter back here in near San Antonio, Del Rio, but with a large marginal risk here. So take the radar off. All right, take the radar off. All right, there we go. So got the hail here. Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, parts of Arkansas, Louisiana, and up into Virginia, North Carolina, parts of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Maryland, and maybe a little bit of South Carolina. Sorry, Mitch, don't look like you're going to get severe weather, but maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But my friend Mitch West has really helped me out a lot with my channel and getting me going here, and I appreciate that. So moving into tomorrow, severe threat. Woo, we got a big one down here, don't we? It's hail threat, right? Southern Texas tomorrow. 1-inch hail possible near Del Rio. It's a big threat, isn't it? I'm only laughing because it's only thing you can do really here. Wind, not expecting thank God, we're not expecting any at least high winds with this. And tornado, not expecting much. Of course, thunderstorms are definitely in the picture here tomorrow along the Gulf Coast all the way back into Colorado, Kansas, Utah, Nevada, Idaho, California, parts of Southern California, Los Angeles maybe, and maybe in the higher terrain here. All right. Now, day 3, which is Friday, right? Lord have mercy. We got more severe weather down here in Texas and along the Gulf Coast. General thunderstorms here as well. Go to probabilistic with this. This is 5% any severe risk for day 3. The outlook, the extended outlook isn't out yet. It'll be out in roughly about an hour. But my expectation is we're not going to have a high potential for severe weather, with the exception along the Gulf Coast here, maybe some wind and tornado risk where the instability in kinematics lines up here, which is not unusual when we have a stalled frontal boundary, but it really is modulated by the rain existing rainfall and where the boundary sets up in the coming days. So if you look a little bit closer, here's a better look at the severe weather map. Roanoke up into, for today. This is updated at midnight central, so 1 a.m. Will be updated again around 8 a.m. this morning, Eastern time. All right. Well, around 9 a.m. this morning, actually, Eastern time. Usually it's about 9 a.m. they update these probabilities here. Maybe here's a better look at the tornado outlook as well, severe wind outlook, and severe hail. See, the severe hail is to our west here, and the highest probabilities of 2-inch hail right back here in southwest Texas. So as far as the threat for wind here, we have this marginal risk, and these are select cities that may have a risk today. Here's a time period, the highest probabilities of when this will come through. So between like 2 and 4 p.m. for Americas. Around the same time, a little bit later for Columbus, you also have the possibility for hail as well. Your hail is in the dotted green. The wind is in the blue here. So no tornadoes expected. Dublin, wind potential is greatest between, as you get into the evening, overnight hours, and into tomorrow maybe, but highest potential is 4 to 8 p.m. or so. Put this twice by accident. Lagrange, pretty low risk here. Here's the probabilities on the left, right? I forgot to mention that. So 2 to 5%. Small hail risk as well, but it's below the threshold, right? You see the dotted line here in green. Pretty much all day here for Lagrange. Macon, expectation between 12 and maybe 2 a.m. tomorrow, right? 12 p.m. The probabilities are highest for severe wind gusts. Moving into Sandersville, very low risk here, maybe 1 or 2% between 2 and 12 a.m. around midnight or so. Warner Robins, that's where I live. Roughly between noon and 2 a.m. is the biggest risk for severe winds as well. So now let's review the probabilities here of tornadoes today. We go through this StormNet. I think this is a pretty good way to depict this, right? This is roughly between 9 and 10 p.m. So this is 5 and 6 a.m. You see the slight risk here, barely here. Very small risk tornadoes with those storms moving through this morning. With a slight risk back here. So you barely see that dot, 9, 10 a.m. So we're going to move this forward a little bit. This StormNet has maybe a 10% risk of tornadoes or less up here in the West Virginia, Kentucky, North Carolina between 2 and 3 p.m. and maybe the chance moving into Virginia, North Carolina as you get into 6 and 7, and into parts of Mississippi, Louisiana, although the risk is quite low here. Interestingly enough, it shows a tornado risk overnight as maybe some storms move through. And I'll look at that convection here, although it's quite low, around 10%. But there may be an MCS type feature pushing through, maybe a warm frontal boundary here. Interesting feature here. Let's see how far it goes. Goes offshore here and up the coastline. So interesting feature. Looks more like an MCS type feature, maybe some rotating storms in that feature here. So moving to wind threat today. This shows the initial wind threat, right? With the little circles here. The highest winds are Tuscaloosa area this morning, 5 to 6 a.m. You see the threat builds as we get into the day. The highest probabilities are southern Mississippi. Starts in Mississippi, moves to southern Mississippi, back towards southern Texas, Montgomery, and along the eastern seaboard mid-Atlantic. You see where the tornado threat was, the highest winds are, and a bullseye of higher winds moves through into the overnight hours. So for Georgia, most of this threat seems to be in the overnight hours, right? As maybe a front tries to side south and MCS moves along this, right? So where this feature moves is going to really dictate, and where our boundary of cooler air that's set up as a result of rain and morning convection modulates the atmospheric response, okay? So back here in Texas, we got some activity, right? Still overnight in the morning, and that moves offshore. So let's look at hail risk real quick. All right, so the hail risk, highest out here in Waco area this morning, early this morning, elevated convection getting going here, likely. We always have the chance for severe hail, more so in Texas because of the steep lapse rates and things like that. Not always, but that's where we see it a lot. And some small hail, 1-inch hail possible here to the north as well, all the way up into Pennsylvania, back towards Louisiana, Mississippi. But you see the highest probabilities are here. Severe hail looks to be pretty high probabilities, 20 to 50% here in parts of Alabama, Mississippi border, Mississippi, southern Mississippi, Louisiana, and up into the mid-Atlantic here. 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hail threat is not zero moving through Georgia, although the percentage is low. And then I think this is, you have this hail threat going into the overnight hours in southern Texas here. Maybe some supercells firing, just some leftover nighttime convection, and that convection along Georgia moves out as well. The mid-Atlantic, your threat looks to move offshore by late this evening. All right, so what we got going on, we have a persistent trough of low pressure up to the north here, which has been swinging different mid-level features moving through the flow here, and a pretty potent west to east flow here, right, in general. But this is 700 millibars, a little bit closer to the surface, and you can make out some stuff here. Let's get along with this here. It's about now 9 a.m. You can see what's going on here. Got a trough of low pressure, maybe a short wave, and some enhancement here moving through the flow right here, right? So that is bringing the convection that we're currently seeing into our area. At least that's part of it, right? So let's look a little bit closer at if I can get this to go here. Reflectivity. All right, 9 a.m. Shows it pretty well here. We got some maybe rotating storms on the north end of this. This is roughly about now. Okay, so 5 a.m. So 4 hours behind UTC. Complex of storms moves to, this is likely elevated convection up here. So moves through. Maybe we get some clearing here by 1 p.m. Storms start firing back out to the west and up to the north. You see convection firing in the mid-Atlantic, West Virginia, Virginia, and this falls apart here. Back to the west, we have enhancement again, and so when we get towards the evening hours, got some rotating storms down here in Texas, parts of Mississippi, Louisiana, and the Northeast just has a lot of convection, I would call it. I don't see a lot of evidence of rotation, at least from HRRR. Let's look at the other models here. I'd say, looking at this, the biggest threat's along the Gulf Coast here as of right now. So let's look at the areas individually here. First, we're going to look back in Texas in the South Central Plains here. So initially, we had some rotating storms, and we had that complex moving out. We get to 12 in the afternoon. Well, it's roughly 12 in the afternoon. Rotating storms getting going here in parts of southern Texas. You remember our area of interest for the severe weather threat today. And hail. See, our biggest chance for severe hail is down here. So this is where we could really get some intense updrafts going here with some steep lapse rates. Take that off. All right. And then the storms kind of move out to the east and west. And then these maybe develop overnight again. And if we get into the outlook for tomorrow for hail, doesn't show it here. So anyway, that's what's going on out west here. So let's move into the southeast. That's today's severe threat. I don't want that. So, all right, let's go back to the southeast here. You hear that dinging? That's my weather radar going off. All right, 9 a.m. storms like I showed in the wide view, moving out to the east here. Pretty much ongoing storms here overnight, during the day, not overnight. And rotating storms back to the west here like we showed in the wide view. Complex of storms moving to the east here in the overnight hours. And you see it wants to push this line up to the north here. This is HRRR, NAM Nest, HRW, FE3, ARW, NSSL, HRR, right? So they all show different variations on this line, but this line could end up being pretty potent. But you see this around 1 a.m. in the morning. Actually, it's 2 a.m. Eastern. So when we get into the overnight hours, it's a lot harder to get tornadoes and things like that. So let's look at the probabilities and a little bit closer view here from this models about wind and hail and tornadoes for this area. So there's a GFS calibrated hail probabilities, right? You see the 5 and 15% areas here back to the west. The highest probability of hail, right? Radius 40 kilometers is roughly 25 miles or so, right? And you see where the hail probabilities fall off as we move to the east here with this. And we go through the end of this period, Thursday, have pretty much nothing here. Now I look at tornado probabilities back to the west here. You have the highest probability of tornadoes, 2, maybe 5% here at the most in the brown, right? That moves to the east into the overnight hours on the 30th. You don't see any probabilities here with that. Now, if we switch to the 24-hour probabilities, that's what it shows here as well, 1%, 2% here. Now, wind probabilities are highest down here in the parts of Mississippi, Louisiana, parts of Texas here, along the Gulf Coast, really. Moving overnight hours, doesn't show much here with the GFS. Some spotty areas here, maybe a small chance. All right, so let's move to the northeast real quick for timing, convection, things like that. Reflectivity, morning hours, 9 a.m. Not a lot going on. Storms firing here. Let's do the mid-Atlantic. That's better, right? So mid-Atlantic, storms firing. Just lines of storms. I mean, you could get some rotating storms based on the fact that you have a surface low moving through up here, although quite weak. 1,000 millibars here and pretty broad, but you see the dew points. If they do end up getting this high, up into this area, we could have severe storms move through, right? And then that surface low kind of moves offshore, and cold front, which is to the south, and that's where your severe threat ends. So um, going back to the member viewer again, this is HRR, right? We'll look at the other ones. They all show varying levels of convection here. So if we can get some surface-based convection going here, we could get some supercells. But this area is notoriously hard to get stuff going, especially if the atmosphere is saturated and we don't have any dry air law to prevent convection from firing. Lake could be very messy today, so we'll see how this plays out as well. I know I talked about a lot today, but to review, severe threat is definitely a lot less than it has been in the past several days, although it can't be ignored. And in general, for the southeast, my take on it is that if we do get some sunshine later today, especially in Georgia, that's where I live, okay, we could get some instability building, at least aloft maybe. And the overnight hours, the potential is there for some severe winds. And I would argue maybe the chance of a respin up tornado, but quite low at this time. So stay tuned for my YouTube channel for updates, or my Twitter page, or any other social media that I'm part of. Appreciate y'all watching and trusting in me for your forecast. Have a great day. God bless.